Welcome to today's DNB program, Indian's DNB program. Today we are having Dr. Tejal who will be, you can start sharing the screen and start presenting.
Good afternoon, everyone. My patient, Mr. L, 70-year-old widowed Hindu male belonging to middle socioeconomic strata, educated up to bachelor's in arts, retired as a bank manager in Union Bank, resident of Delhi. Informant is the son and the daughter. Information was adequate and reliable. Duration of illness is more than 40 years, episodic with complete inter-episodic recovery. Duration of current episode is 4 weeks. Current episode of onset is acute, precipitating factor could not be elicited. Chief complaints, according to the patient, low mood, crying spells, death wishes since 15 days, and repeatedly saying, I have died, everything is over since last 1 week. According to the relatives, low mood, decreased energy since last 1 month, and repeatedly saying, I have died since last 1 week. HOPI. Patient was apparently all right, was going about his routine activities, sleeping for 7 to 8 hours a day, eating his meals on time, going on about his routine activities, interacting well with the family members. He was staying with his son in Delhi 3 weeks ago when he started reported feeling more tired than his usual self. He was earlier energetic even for his patient was apparently all right, going about with his routine activities, sleeping for 7 to 8 hours a day, eating his meals on time, and interacting well with his family members. Patient was staying with his son in Delhi 3 weeks ago when he started reporting feeling more tired than his usual. He was earlier energetic even for a 70-year-old, interacting with family members, performing his puja. However, he started feeling like staying in bed longer in the morning and not performing his puja. Going out, even for a small walk, seemed like a huge task to the patient. He reported feeling low in energy in his day-to-day activities. Over the next 1 week, even taking a bath or brushing his teeth seemed to take too much energy and had to be told by the family members to go about doing these activities. His energy levels continued to decline, and patient spent most of his day sitting in the room or lying on the bed, which was unlike his previous energetic self. Patient at the same time also reported having low mood throughout the day. He could not find any explanation for low mood and low energy at that time. Talking to his family or listening to bhajans, which cheered him up earlier, seemed to have no effect on his mood since past 3 weeks. He also stopped performing activities which interested him earlier, like watching TV, cricket matches, listening to old songs, or performing puja. These activities did not seem to interest him anymore. On the contrary, watching anything seemed to require too much energy and concentration, and patient would not even want to turn on the TV. He would say that loud sounds gave him a headache and he needed to be quiet and return to his room. If any family member visited, he would converse with them for a few minutes and excuse himself and go and rest back in his room. Patient also reported a decline in his confidence level. Along with the low energy, patient felt less confidence in going out and being in social settings. He also did not have the confidence to make minor decisions of the day. He would worry that he would make mistakes. Even on multiple reassurances from his family, he continued to avoid being a part of daily household routine. He could not understand the reason behind a sudden change in confidence level, and even when there was no reason that he should be doubting himself. He also reported to his son that he did not feel confident during his conversations with family members and always worried if he had said anything wrong to anyone. If forced to come out of the room and interact, patient would do so only for a few minutes and then became quiet again. He also stopped calling his relatives on phone or meeting up with extended family. When his family members asked him why he was not interacting with them, he would claim that he just feels tired and exhausted. Patient started to complain of sleep disturbances. He started sleeping more than usual, 10 to 12 hours a day for 3 weeks, compared to his previous schedule of 6 to 7 hours a day. Gradually, over the next few weeks, it was noticed that patient was lying down on the bed for most of the day and was frequently found to be asleep, but continued to complain about not feeling fresh once he is woken up. His appetite also reduced. Patient had to be coaxed to eat his meals on time. The quantity of food was reducing over a period of time. He continued to take bath regularly. He reported of less motivation and energy in doing the same. He had to be told by the family members. Unlike earlier, he would do these activities on his own. Following these complaints, patient was then taken to a private psychiatrist and started on tablet fluoxetine 40 milligrams, and then the tablet was increased to 60 milligrams per day, along with tablet clonazepam 0.5 at bedtime. Patient complained that the patient was compliant to the medication but reported no side effects, and his mood continued to deteriorate. Despite on medications, he remained sad throughout the day. Gradually, he started spending most of his time alone in his room and refusing to go out. He would spend most of his time on the bed or sitting in the chair of the living room. On 20th of September, coming to know from his son that they needed to contribute some money for construction of idol at their hometown, patient started to worry that his sons did not have enough money and would have financial issues. Though his sons reassured him that he had already given their share and they could manage it, patient continued to worry and kept asking for his son repeatedly if they had made a mistake by contributing so much money. His energy levels further declined. Patient would not sleep unlike before, but the sleep on the bed or sit on the chair and appeared to be worrying about his money matters now. He started skipping meals. Patient was also noticed to become irritable when forced to have meals on time. He had to be persuaded by his family to brush his teeth and take bath, which he continued to perform on his own. Which he continued to perform on his own once he was convinced to enter the bathroom. However, on many issues, the son reports that patient would be verbally abusive for making him perform these acts as he had no energy to do so. Throughout the course of the day, patient would apologize for being rude and become tearful. Over the next 4 days, patient started to have conversations with his son about how no hope is left in life. He would be on bed for most of the day and repeatedly express that he has become useless. He would tell his family that he was a burden to them and that he was a cause of worry to them. He was no longer contributing to family anymore, and hence he was worthless towards the family. He would say that he had caused financial ruin to the family by making them contribute a huge sum of money. Now they were spending money on his treatment and that they should leave him alone and nobody can help him. His life was not worth living anymore. Patient's son also reports that during these 4 days, he would feel like there's nothing left in the future, and instead he was a burden to everybody. It was better that he started having death wishes where he would say that it's better that God puts end to his life once for all. Following the worsening of these symptoms, patient was consulted the hospital again and he was started on tablet lithium carbonate 300 milligram and escitalopram 5 milligram, and fluoxetine was continued at 40 milligrams. The same day on returning home, patient refused to have food. He reported to his son that he has become a burden and is worthless. He apologized to him for not performing his duties and not providing him well. He also continued to apologize for ruining their savings and by making them contribute money that he was responsible for their misfortune. Sons, although convinced him that he's been good, he continued to do so. Patient had poor sleep in the night. Following this, the next day, patient appeared agitated. He told his son that they had ruined everything. There was no money to feed him. His grandchildren would be lost. There was no grain to feed anybody. The bank account had no money, and that he would be on streets without food. The son took him around the house, showed him the kitchen, showed the money, but patient refused to believe, saying that because of his mistake, everything is ruined. When they tried to give him breakfast, convince him, patient refused to eat food. He said that his organs are not functioning, that he was already dead, and that why would a dead body need to eat? He told his sons to cry as he no longer existed. When family tried to convince him that they could see him, he was breathing, patient refused to believe the same. He refused to eat or take any other medication, saying that he was dead and did not need medications. Patient got physically aggressive when they tried to come close to him, pushing him away. Patient then refused to eat. He shut his mouth, did not allow his family to feed him even water. He remained agitated, was physically aggressive. He would lie down on the ground, as reported by the son, as patient was convinced he was dead. He would resist any attempts to make him lie down on the bed, and he would continue to sleep on the floor. He said his legs did not exist. Patient did not take a bath, eat for 2 days, though he would use the washroom on his own. Following this aggressive episode and refusal to eat, patient was brought to the hospital. Negative history. There's no history of any headache, fever, trauma, loss of consciousness, memory, tonic-clonic movements, or confusion. In the current episode, there's no history of any suicide attempts, although history of death wishes is there. There's no history of increased energy, elevated mood, over-talkativeness, increased goal-directed activity, self-esteem, increased expenditure, tall claims. No history of spontaneous onset of palpitations, breathlessness, sweating, choking sensation, or impending doom. No history of hearing voices, inaudible to others, suspiciousness, fearfulness, muttering to self. No history of staying in abnormal posture, slowness of movements, decreased speech or passing urine. No history of his own thoughts being repetitively intrusive or irrational. No history of any forgetfulness. Past psychiatric history. Patient is a known case of bipolar affective disorder for more than 40 years as reported by the son. There are multiple episodes characterized by elevated mood when patient would remain more irritable compared to his previous selves. with anger outbursts and authoritativeness. During this period, patient was overtly talkative, socializing more energetic, and he slept for only 1 to 2 hours at night. He would be performing some other activity at home like cleaning or getting a house renovated. These episodes of increased energy and irritable mood would last for 2 to 3 months. These episodes would sometimes be followed by depressive episode characterized by low mood, low energy, reduced self-esteem, excessive worry. As reported by the Sun, the episode of mania lasted for 2 to 3 months, followed by euthymic period of 8 to 9 months and 15 to 20 days of depression. There would be 2 episodes over 1.5 years from late 1980s to 2000. Episodes would require treatment would be manic episodes with increased symptoms of aggression. Treatment would be continued for 1 to 2 months and then discontinued. Patient in past has shown response to lithium carbonate, according to the informant. Depressive episodes were treated with antidepressants. No long-term treatment was sought and inter-episodic worry was complete. Patient continued to work in between episodes with regular 7 to 8 hours of sleep and normal appetite. According to the informant, patient was asymptomatic from 2000 to 2011 and was off medications. Treatment history, past records are not available. Uh, Patient's son reports response to lithium and antidepressants in the depressive episode of 2011. Past history of response to lithium, patient had started on fluoxetine 40 milligram 3 weeks ago in the current episode, and dose had increased to 60. Patient was compliant and reported no side effects. However, symptoms continued to persist despite treatment. Past medical history, there's history of diabetes and hypertension since 20 years on regular treatment. History of angioplasty 10 years ago on regular treatment. There's no history of hypothyroidism, stroke, epilepsy, TB, or asthma. Family history. Patient's he's the eldest of the three brothers, belongs to middle socioeconomic strata, widowed since 20 years. He has 2 sons and daughter. He lives with his son who resides in Ghaziabad, and Jaipur alternates between the 2 cities for 6 months. There's family history of bipolar affective disorder in patient's father, elder brother, and the eldest son. Patient's family has a fair understanding of the illness. They have learned to recognize the symptoms of mania and depression, and he was taken to a psychiatrist during all the episodes for treatment. Personal history, birth and development history was not available. Rest patient graduated as Bachelor of Arts, started working in local bank, and has retired as Union Bank manager 10 years ago. He was married at the age of 28, shares good relationship with his late wife who passed away 20 years ago due to renal failure. There's no history of any substance use or legal complications. Premorbid personality, as told by Sun when the patient was asymptomatic. Social relations, patients with outgoing, used to spend time with family. Average and intellectual functioning. Patient was a calm person, predominantly jovial mood. Attitude towards work and responsibility was good. He was responsible when it came to family duties. Moral, religious, social characters were well maintained, good standards. Leisure time, and he would spend his leisure time reading books, listening to bhajans, watching TV. He was regular with his habits, daily routine, would sleep 7 to 8 hours, and had regular meals. Inference is a well-adjusted premorbid personality. On general physical examination, average built male, no signs of pallor, cyanosis, icterus, clubbing, afebrile, pulse was 80 per minute, BP was 130/80. In the right arm sitting position, BMI was 23, height was 170 centimeters, weight was 68. Systemic examination, respiratory sounds, no added sounds, no added sounds, S1, S2, no murmurs heard per abdomen, soft, no organomegaly, CNS, no abnormality, cranial nerves, sensory system, motor system, cerebellar signs, and no signs of mental irritation found. Now, mental status examination. An elderly male of average build sitting on the bed in the interview room with downcast eyes, gaze, furrowing of eyebrows, hunched back, and drooping of shoulders. During the course of interview, patient was poorly cooperative, would lie down on bed multiple times and refused to get up, saying that it was not possible. Eye-to-eye contact was initiated but not maintained. Rapport was not established. Psychomotor activity was decreased. Speech was decreased in rate, tone, and volume. It was relevant, coherent, non-goal directed. Reaction time was increased. Mood and affect quality was subjectively, patient used to say, "Main udas hu." Objectively, he was irritable. Range is normal, reactivity was present. Inappropriate to the situation, congruent to the thought content. Thought flow was normal. Form of thought, there was no abnormality found on form of thought. Possession of thought, there was no abnormality. Content of thought, patient used to say, the speech sample is in Hindi. I will just elaborate it. Patient says that I am dead from inside. I am a dead body. Everything inside me is dead. I don't have a liver. My kidneys are not working. I cannot walk. I don't know why my children are doing so much for me. I'm dead. I'm just like a dead body. Inference was nihilistic delusion. The other says that everything outside is over. I have no money. My entire house is gone. I have absolutely no money. Outside the world is also over. I have I don't know why my children are keeping them. My children and grandchildren also have no money. Inference was delusion of poverty. Cognitive functions, the patient was oriented to time, place, and person. Attention concentration digit span forward was 4, backward was 2. Serial subtraction patient could do only up to 5 places, after which he would voluntarily leave it and say, I will not be able to do this. It was aroused and sustained. Memory, immediate memory, by giving 3 unrelated words, patient was able to recall 2 of them. Recent was patient was asked what he had for breakfast, and remote was patient was asked where he had graduated from. The inference was that recent, immediate, and remote memories were all intact. High mental function, general fund of knowledge, abstraction, and proverb interpretation. So patient tried to answer these questions, but he says he was too exhausted and could not think of answers. He was preoccupied with having survived. Patient was not cooperative for higher mental functions and cognitive assessment. Judgment, personal judgment was impaired. Patient says, I am dead. What else will happen? He refuses to take oral intake, aggressive towards the family. Test judgment, patient was not cooperative. Overall, the judgment was impaired. Insight was grade 1. Diagnostic formulation, a 70-year-old widowed elderly Hindu male patient belonging to middle socioeconomic strata, educated up to BA, retired bank manager, residing in Delhi with a well-adjusted pre-morbid personality, family history of bipolar affective disorder and father, elder brother, eldest son, medical history of diabetes and hypertension, angioplasty done 10 years ago, came with episodic illness of duration of more than 40 years with complete inter-episodic recovery, current episodes of 4 weeks, acute in onset, characterized by persistent, pervasive sadness of mood, easy fatigability, low confidence, decreased interaction, ideas of helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, delusions of poverty and nihilism, refusal to eat, decreased sleep, socioeconomic dysfunction since last 1 month, past episode of multiple manic and depressive episode with response to lithium and euthymic period from 2000 to 2011. Mental status examination revealed conscious, poorly cooperative, grossly oriented patient, down gaze, hunched back, drooping shoulders, intermittently lying down on the bed during interview, decreased psychomotor activity, decreased rate of tone and volume of speech, increased reaction time, irritable affect, delusion of poverty and nihilism, and ideas of helplessness, hopelessness, and worthlessness, death wishes, and impaired judgment, and grade 1 insight. My diagnosis is, according to ICD-10, bipolar affective disorder, current episode in severe depression with psychotic features.
Okay. What else is in your diagnosis? Only this much, or is there anything else?
Sir, this is the only thing. Actually, sir, earlier I had a case of alcohol, but then alcohol we had already discussed. So we thought we could discuss bipolar affective with this. My other differential diagnosis can be MD, can be depression, severe depression with psychotic symptoms, according to ICD-10. And that is the other differential I would like to give. Speech was relevant. I didn't say irrelevant. Speech was relevant.
Yeah. You need not give a differential diagnosis if there is no differential. This is a straightforward case. Bipolar affective disorder, current episode in severe depression with psychotic symptoms. If somebody asks you whether there is any differential diagnosis, you say there is no differential diagnosis.
Okay.
You need not change it to severe depression.
Okay. Yes, sir, because so many episodes are there already. So
yeah.
The only thing I could think of was the depression with psychotic features.
There are episodes clear cut. Then you need not go ahead with other differentials. So when I asked, are there any other diagnoses, would you also like to consider his medical history?
Yes, sir.
Can you give a complete diagnosis, full diagnosis?
Sir, with medical history?
Yeah, he has some medical history, no?
So yes, sir. So he has. So sorry, a second. I think I've stopped sharing the screen. Just 1 second. I'll share the screen again. Yes, sir. So he has. He's had angioplasty was done, and history of diabetes and hypertension is there.
So what would be
With,
your
okay,
complete
sorry,
diagnosis?
sorry, sorry. It should be bipolar affective, current episode, severe depression with psychotic features, with hypertension and diabetes, with diabetes mellitus and hypertension.
Okay. Type 2, type 1,
So type 2 diabetes.
primary hypertension, secondary hypertension.
So probably primary hypertension, but that detail I don't know.
Okay. Then what else? Angioplasty, history of angioplasty 10 years ago.
Okay, okay, sir. Yes, sir, with
But
angioplasty 10 years ago.
why was angioplasty done? It was because of coronary artery disease. So the
Yes, sir.
complete diagnosis will also include coronary artery disease.
Coronary disease. Okay, sir. So with diabetes type 2 hypertension, with diabetes type 2, with hypertension, with coronary artery disease, and angioplasty done 10 years ago.
Yeah. Does anybody have any doubts in this case? We have a couple of doubts here. Kartika, can you unmute your mic and ask the question?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Kartika, we are able
I
to hear
had
you.
2-3 doubts in this. First one was that considering his age, like 70-year-old, will we be assessing his cognitive functioning ability, and then will we be getting time in this that be a problem? My second thing was he was off medicine from 2011. Not after that treatment in and so one more doubt was we were mentioning that the RAPO was not established. When we are not able to establish RAPO, will we be making all the subsequent assessments, or is it RAPO or difficulty?
Okay. The questions are whether cognitive functions should be assessed during exam. So, what do you think, Dr. Tejal?
Sir, I didn't have too much of. I cannot completely assess, sir, but on MSc I did assess whether the patient was oriented, and his memory I assessed in short, immediate, recent, and remote. I did the DigiScan test and serial subtraction test. That is all I could do at that time. Otherwise, sir, I could MMSC I could apply, mini mental state MMSC I could have applied, but didn't have so much time.
What we should remember is for everybody, we'll not have that much amount of time. We'll have about 40 to 45 minutes to complete the entire case. Another 10 minutes, probably extra 10 to 20 minutes for probably, because if we have case in, say, for example, another state where the language is difficult, we don't know the language. So at that point of time, they would give about 10 to 15 minutes extra. So ideally, in a case, we'll have to do when they come for come to us for treatment. But in the exam, we'll not be able to do. So in such a situation, how do you present it? Like, we know that Dr. Karthika asked the relevant question that like right now he's 70-year-old.
Yes.
You said cognitive functions are could not be established. Attention was aroused and
so I said
sustained.
So I said that the cognitive patient is oriented, attention, concentration, aroused and sustained, and memory was intact. And so in the history also, there is no history of any forgetfulness or anything that suggests dementia or memory problems right now.
But his digit forward is 4 and backward is 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What do you think is the normal digit forward and backward?
So digit forward should be at least 5 to 6 and backward should be at least 3 to 4.
Yeah, he has fairly less than that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But sir, that is more because of his depression. He says, I can't do this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I understand. But see, there can be a possibility of pseudo dementia. There can be possibility of real dementia because of the age factor. And also chronic hypertensive, diabetic. We don't know the status of that yet.
Yes, sir.
Whether it is glycemic control, is control of blood pressure, we don't know that.
Yes.
So what if he has vascular dementia, or what if he has multi-infarct dementia?
Yes.
So it need not be Alzheimer's, but given the history of diabetes and hypertension, there could be chances of multi-infarct dementia, which has not come up in the history anyways. There is no stepladder pattern.
No, sir.
But we'll have to keep our minds open and tell that, okay, there is some disturbance in cognitive ability right now.
Yes, sir.
And then you interpret that.
Okay, sir.
You interpret it as either you think that it is probably because of depression currently,
Yes, sir.
which is a valid answer. You tell that. So
Yes.
currently digit forward is 4 and backward is 2. So attention could be aroused but could not be sustained for long enough. Probably
Yes.
this may be probably due to depression currently.
Okay.
And in such a case, that what do you want to? How will you bring it up in the exam? 70-year-old probably having either Alzheimer's or multi-infarct dementia, and cognitive tests, there is some slight reduced ability in his cognition.
Okay, sir.
How will you bring it up in the exam? How will you?
So, but sir, during the like, sir, in the management.
Yeah, we'll come to that. You haven't finished the management, no?
Yes,
So
sir.
keep this in mind when you
Okay,
when we
sir.
come to management.
Okay, sir. Okay.
And then Dr. Karthika also asked whether, okay, considering his age, will we get time? Will not get time, so we can't assess it. So, but in the management, we can bring it up.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Jwala asked, does the patient has derealization?
No, the patient has not given me any history of derealization.
Any other doubts?
Sir, I wanted to ask, in such a case where there's such a long history, can we start by saying that patient is a known case of some psychiatric illness?
If they tell you, yes.
So, like, suppose a family has told us that the patient has been taking medications and is on some medications, off medications now, and 40 years is suffering from some psychiatric illness. So, in the history, can I say that before starting, if the patient is apparently all right, before that, can I say that patient is a known case of some psychiatric illness? Since
See,
40 years?
ideally, before we even start that, at least in Niemann's proforma, what usually is done is about the episodicity and continuity and precipitating factors. These come up.
Yes.
So
yes,
during
yes,
that
yes.
time, usually people tell that here is a person who has history of 40 years of
Yes, so
illness,
like
which is
duration of
episodic.
illness, I have said that more than 40 years episodic with recovery. But in the HOPI, sir, do we say that is a known case?
No, in the HOPA, no.
Okay, sir.
See, I'll tell you, there are two ways to look at it. One way is that we tell that, okay, here is a person who has 40 years of illness of episodic in nature, which was probably acute in onset, abrupt in onset, whatever it is, or insidious
Yes.
in onset. Now episodic in nature, and the current episode is from past 1 month, and I am presenting the current episode. Because there is inter-episodic recovery. So if there is an inter-episodic recovery, we present the current episode in the HOPI, and in the past history, we'll speak about all the other episodes. It will save time. Otherwise, what will happen is that in many cases, people will start telling that, okay, here is a person, 40 years history they'll present, and then they'll tell that, okay, the first episode mania occurred like this, the second episode of mania occurred like this, third episode depression in this way. So it'll take away a lot of time.
Okay.
And it will be repetitive anyways.
Yes.
Most of the times it will be similar. So we tell that we'll only present the current episode in the HOPA, and in the past history we'll tell that, okay, the person had 8 episodes of mania, 7 episodes of depression, or we couldn't assess the number of episodes of mania and depression, but usually during mania the person would present in this way. Usually during depression the person would present in this way.
Yes. Okay.
Dr. Deepali also has asked, in the past history, is it okay to mention is a known case of bipolar affective disorder? If they have given that history,
they have said so. The son was educated, so they said that he's a known case.
Yeah. Usually, what will happen is that people who are well educated will know, like 30-40 years of illness duration. People will know that they have such a illness and what needs to be done. So they'll tell us. When they tell us, it is not correct to hide that. It is not correct to tell that, okay, we don't know what it is, because the patient has already told.
Yes.
If the examiner asks that it's HOPI or it's past history, why are you using technical words? Then we tell that it is because the person has told us.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I had one doubt as to in this history, the precipitating factor was not mentioned. Did he have any
So
precipitating
he
factor?
didn't have, he did not have any precipitating factors. Suddenly it was, onset was acute because suddenly he started telling his sons that he's feeling sad and low mood and everything. There was no precipitating factor.
Okay. The other thing was that you said in the pre-morbid history,
Yes, sir.
when the patient remains asymptomatic, you have presented that as pre-morbid history.
Yes, sir. Pre-morbid personality.
Yeah, pre-morbid personality. So, would you think that would constitute pre-morbid personality?
Actually, no, sir, because this patient has episodic illness is episodic, so that cannot all. So I should have said, sir, maybe even before the beginning of the illness.
Yeah. Pre-morbid, as it says, is before the onset of illness. That is,
Yes, sir.
when he was probably 20, 30-year-old.
Yes.
It will also include probably his. Right now, it would be difficult to get that history. So we tell that it is difficult. But if
Yes,
his
sir.
wife was alive, or his parents would have come, or anybody
Yes,
would
sir.
have given that reliable history, then right now he might be symptomatic, so he is not giving. Otherwise, in a person who is in mania or even going into euthymia, we can ask like uh, how do you tell that your friends would explain about you? If we asked your friends
Yes,
as
sir.
to how was Mr. L, so how do they explain? How do they tell me about you? So that would give us an idea about pre-morbid personality.
Okay, sir.
And probably in this case, it would also be good if we take history of childhood.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
come to that later, why we should take childhood history. But if we take temperamental history, then coming on to his pre-morbid history, because his onset is about 30 years, 29, 30 years is when
Yes.
his onset would have happened. So
Yes.
after that, what you have explained is interepisodic history,
Yes, sir.
which would not really be pre-morbid.
Pre-morbid. Right, sir. Right, sir.
So if there are no other questions, shall we move on to
So one
management?
more thing, in pre-morbid personality, do we say like cluster A, B, C traits present, or do we say this hyperthymic, psychothymic, temperament present? So which is better in exam?
See, in the exam, it depends on the age at which you are seeing the patient and that age at which the onset occurred.
Okay.
If the age at onset is, like, say, for example, schizophrenia, which is between 17 to 22, you are
Okay.
seeing at 70 years only, but the onset had happened probably at late adolescent age.
Yes, sir.
So there you can't present a pre-morbid personality because personality has
That
started developing.
18. Oh, yes, sir.
Personality would develop, say, usually by about 18, 19 years. By about 22 years or so, it will set in. So before that, if the onset of illness has happened, then we present only temperament.
Okay, sir.
If it is later than that, we think that, okay, personality has already been set, and hence we'll talk about pre-morbid personality.
Okay, sir.
In pre-morbid personality, it is good to give all the characteristics, and then if they have any clustering or if they have any personality traits, to mention that.
Okay, sir.
Again, here we'll have to remember that there are three things. One, the person might not have any other traits of any known personality disorders at all. Say there are 10 personality disorders, not even a single trait has happened.
Yes, sir.
So, or if this has happened, right now he is depressed, and if it comes in a person who has probably anxiety, so it comes as anxious personality or anxious avoidant personality, it might be state dependent during that episode. So we'll tell in pre-morbidity it will not come. So in pre-morbid, what will come is trait.
Straight.
Now
Okay.
this trait, when we are talking about trait, that means to say it is long standing. It has occurred from early adolescence. It has started at early adolescence and continued to his adulthood. Now, if that trait has caused significant problems in the life, then it would qualify to become a disorder.
Okay, sir.
Then we'll tell he had personality disorder.
Okay, sir.
Because we should be knowing in many psychiatric illnesses, the personality disorders are a comorbid diagnosis.
Comorbid diagnosis, yes, sir.
For example, in bipolar disorder, which one do you think would be more possible personality disorder which could co-occur?
So bipolar, so borderline personality.
Yeah, borderline personality disorder is usually associated with bipolar disorder.
Yes.
Say a person with schizophrenia has come. So what type of personalities would be associated with schizophrenia?
So schizotypal personality traits, schizoid personality traits.
Yeah, the cluster A ones.
Yes,
Schizoid, schizotype, even paranoid personality.
Paranoid personality, yes, sir.
These may be pre-existing in a person who has come with schizophrenia. We have to know whether it was a disorder also, because a lot of times when we start treating people, the prognosis also would depend on treating these personality factors.
Yes, sir.
So because of that reason, it would be better if we also know this. For example, in a person with OCD or any anxiety spectrum disorders, we expect any cluster C personality traits, or
yes,
if it has caused a dysfunction, it would be personality disorder.
Okay. Okay, sir.
We'll go ahead with the management then.
Okay, sir. So I'll continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So this patient, in this patient, I would like to admit this patient in view of danger to self and decreased oral intake. After admitting this patient, I would like to send some baseline investigation of complete blood count, routine investigations of complete blood count, as I might need to add drugs later on that will affect the blood count, especially if I'm adding lithium that can cause leukocytosis, or carbamazepine valproate, they can all cause blood dyscrasia. I would like to give renal function tests and electrolytes, again because the drugs like lithium are excreted renally. Antipsychotics, they can affect renal metabolism. Blood sugar and lipid profiles, fasting blood glucose, postprandial, HbA1c. Liver function test for carbamazepine and valproate that I'll be adding later. ECG, baseline ECG because of the age and some QT changes that can occur with antipsychotics. Additionally, I would like to do an chest X-ray to rule out any infection, and thyroid function test, as thyroid subclinical hypothyroidism is associated with problems with bipolar affective disorder. I would like to divide the treatment into pharmacological and non-pharmacological management. In pharmacological management, I would like to divide into acute and long-term management. For current episode, because patient has depressive symptoms along with some psychotic symptoms, I would like to start the patient with olanzapine and fluoxetine combination. 5 milligram olanzapine with 25 milligrams of fluoxetine, 20 milligrams of fluoxetine combination. I would like to up-titrate the dose depending on response of the patient. I would like to look out for immediate side effects such as hypotension, excessive sedation, or initial anxiety on starting the combination. I would like to add a benzodiazepine like clonazepam, maybe 0.5 milligrams at SOS basis if the patient is feeling disruptive, if the patient is anxious or has decreased sleep. I would like to continue this for at least. I would like to up-titrate this management for at least for a week and see how the patient has responded to it. I would, in the meantime, psychoeducate the family in detail regarding the illness. I would like to rule out the reason for non-compliance as to why patient stops medications in between, and details of that. And also because the patient has earlier responded to lithium, so I would like to eventually add lithium or lamotrigine as a mood stabilizer for further prophylaxis during management. So in non-pharmacological management, first the psychoeducation, then I could start, once the patient is stabilized, I could like to start the patient on CBT, and there can be family therapy, CBT, IPSRT, but that's a long-term management.
Anything else?
So currently, also I would like to definitely see, because patient is a hypertensive and diabetic, I would like to get his regular BP monitoring done. I would also like to see his fasting, postprandial, HbA1c, that I've done earlier also, and I have to see whether patient requires medications for that. And I would, of course, I would also like to add scales, baseline scales I would like to add, and for a scale for depression, and I would review that after every 1 week. And like so earlier, some detailed cognitive assessment, and I would like to do mini-mental status examination at the baseline, and then review his cognitive functions. So that's all.
Okay. Are there any other questions that people want to ask? If anybody has a question, they can raise their hands here, or they can unmute their mic and ask the question. Okay. If others don't have question, I will start with the questions. Dr. Teja, you said that you would like to admit the patient.
Yes, sir.
Because of the reasons you said. So, yes, would you like to modify it, modify the way you bring it up? Keeping in mind the current
the Mental Health Care Act, yes, sir. So I would like to admit the patient under Section 89 of Mental Health Care Act 2017, because the patient is not willing to get admitted. So that will be under Section 89 then.
So if the patient comes to us,
yes,
we see the person says, I don't want to get admitted, we'll tell, okay, Section 89, get admitted. Is it like that?
No, sir. We would have to talk to the family members, sir, and we have to see the need for admission, sir. So
in this case,
yes, sir.
What else is there?
So I would like to assess the insight and the capacity of the patient. And if the patient lacks capacity, then I can assess. I mean, I can admit the patient under Section 89.
Yeah, everybody started answering
yes,
also about capacity assessment. Yeah, yes, capacity assessment. Before capacity assessment, do you want to do anything? Last time, Dr. Bindi had mentioned that.
So before capacity assessment. So I would like to talk to the family members.
Yeah, that is what Dr. Rima said. But before that, what do you want to talk to? What do you want to talk about to family members?
So I would, sir, I would have to take the consent of the family.
And that is there. That is there. Once you assess capacity, no capacity, then you take consent of the family.
Yes, sir.
The very fact that the family has got to us gives us confidence that okay, they may
yes, sir,
admit, but it may not be so. After we tell the costs involved, they may get admitted or not admitted. But before that, do you want to ask family members about anything else?
So any physical patient is on medication. Advanced directives, sir. If the patient has had any advanced directives.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Advanced directive or nominated representatives?
Nominated representatives, yes, sir.
These two things, right now we are not practicing that very thoroughly because mental health review boards have not been established. But we should remember that by the time you people start practicing in full force, this will be normal. So we'll start telling that, we'll start utilizing that, we'll start talking to people about all these things. So yes, the first thing when a person comes is that we'll collect the history from the patient and family members we have diagnosed. Now yes, we think that this person requires admission. So we ask the person and family members whether this person had an advance directive.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If no, then we'll ask who is the nominated representative for this person. Has this person written anywhere that this person would be my nominated representative?
Okay, sir.
If any of this is present, then we'll get that information. Sooner or later, this would become norm. That many people would have advance directive or a nominated representative. Nowadays, to NIMHANS, many people have come and started asking about advance directive, whether they can have this or not. So, once this mental health review boards are set up and act as full in force, many people would, at least educated people like this patient, would probably go in for advance directives. So we'll see whether the person has an advance directive, nominated representative. If no, if the person has any of these, then we'll go according to that. If the person has advance directive and has said something in that, we'll go according to that. If the person has said something and it is, you think that it is not, it should not be followed right now for clinical reasons, what would you do next?
Sir, if so, then so I can, if I don't agree with the patient's choice, so if I don't agree with the patient's choice of nominated representative.
No, if you don't agree with that, with the patient's choice of advance directive.
So I can send to the review board to get it changed, or I can
not changed, to overrule
it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To overrule or override the advance directive made by the patient because of the clinical condition, then we would approach the mental health review board.
Yes, sir.
That this is the advance directive, and clinically we think that it should not be followed currently.
Yes,
so otherwise, nominated, if the person doesn't have an advance directive, then a nominated representative should be asked about. It should be discussed with the nominated representative of the various treatment options.
Okay.
So remember that. Although we use it routinely, that I would like to admit, the better way to put it is that I would offer IP care.
Okay, sir.
I would offer inpatient care to this person after finding advance directive, nominated representative and all. And whether to take this offer or not will be dependent on that person.
Okay.
All these also stem from contracts.
Yes.
Okay. So if we a patient taking a treatment is like a contract. So that is why it was under Consumer Protection Act. Right now they have removed it, but a contract will involve offer, acceptance, and a consideration. So the offer is that you offer that this person requires IP care. Would you like to get admitted? If they take that, they'll tell, yeah, we'll like to get admitted, and we'll get admitted. The consideration is that for that this might be the cost incurred.
Okay.
So they'll agree to that and they'll take the offer. Then there is a contract which is established.
Yes, sir.
Then whatever we treat will be ethically. It will take on ground. It will take grounds. If not, if they reject the offer, then our duty as a doctor to that patient will cease to exist.
Okay, sir.
Okay. This is some like I knew that most of you wouldn't be prepared for this question, so I'm just googly question I wanted to ask. You would be prepared about all lithium valproate and also.
Yes, sir.
Googly it.
Yes.
So the next thing what people would ask is about when you say routine investigations and clinical complete blood picture, all these things you told it briefly, it was good. The thing is that would you still want to go with FBS and PPBS in this person, or HbA1c would be enough?
Sir, if the patient is known diabetic and known diabetic, if he is on regular treatment and he's an educated person who has probably got his blood test done, in that case, FBS, PPBS may not be that necessary.
In this patient?
In this patient, because sir, he is educated, and if he knows his history well, and he's probably, the family knows that he's got his blood test done. But sir, because he's depressed, he's probably not eaten anything, he's probably off medications. So I would like to do a FBS and PPBS and HbA1c.
Yeah, good. So I see, whenever you're telling you don't talk about hypothetical patient, you talk about this patient.
Okay.
Okay, this patient is a known diabetic and hypertensive, so he is not having food because of his nihilistic delusions, and hence the first thing you would do as soon as the person comes would be to get FBS and RBS at that point of time.
Yes.
Even before FBS and PPBS, we'll not wait till next day morning to see whether FBS PPBS can be done.
Yes.
First thing to be done is RBS and electrolytes. Electrolytes did not come out.
Yes.
So 70-year-old male without eating.
So I actually said RFT. So, but I should have said electrolytes separately.
RFT will consist of usually blood urea and serum creatinine.
And creatine. Okay, sir. Serum electrolytes. Sir.
Yeah, serum electrolytes is another thing which would be very important in this person. So we'll do, the first thing to do is are these two things. If the person has not eaten for long enough time, then if you're suspecting any in general physical examination you find some symptoms of ketoacidosis or lactic acidosis, then you would also try and do ABG.
Okay, sir.
But right now this person did not have any of those
currently
in the examination. So because it was not there in the examination, you are still okay to get these things.
Okay.
So the first thing is RBS and serum electrolytes. Anyways, you are taking blood, so you will also get all these other things done.
Yes, sir.
And next day morning we will get FBS and PPBS.
PPBS. Yes.
Okay. You in the RFT, what did you? Can you please repeat what you told about why you would want to go ahead with RFT?
Sir, I would like to do RFT-A because the patient is diabetic, so they could be suffering from diabetic nephropathy. To rule that out, also, sir, I might have to start the patient later on lithium, which is excreted renally and can cause interstitial nephritis. Certain antipsychotics, which are also used for sometimes later, like amisulpride, levosulpride, they are also excreted renally. So, if for that also renal function test baseline would be helpful. Also, sir, antidepressants like tricyclic antidepressants, if required, they are not currently, but if required, can cause hyponatremia or any other renal issues. So, just for the baseline, I would like to do renal function tests.
Okay. How was lithium excreted? Can you tell the mechanism of that?
So lithium actually acts just like sodium in the body. So it is treated in the body like sodium. So it is excreted renally mostly, and
through what? Through what mechanism?
So through
which part of the kidney and through what mechanism?
So lithium excretion. So interstitium and I don't know.
Okay. So is there anything, something like sodium potassium ATPase, something like that for lithium sodium, or for sodium? How is sodium excreted?
So sodium is excreted via, sir, so it's under the influence of ADH also, and it is also excreted via, sir. So by the channels, the potassium sodium ATPase channels.
No, not ATPase. So will you read about that? What usually happens is that lithium is exchanged for sodium. Instead of sodium being excreted, lithium is conserved and sodium gets excreted.
Okay.
So that is another reason why in a person who is not eating or a person who has vomiting and all, we should be extra cautious in looking at the serum electrolyte level.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Because more of sodium can get excreted, the person can, and that will increase thirst. Lithium concentration happens in the blood, and the person might drink more water. Again, more of sodium excretion because of more water, and this may lead to right now he is having diabetes mellitus, but it can also lead to diabetes insipidus and SIADH.
Yes, sir.
So because of that reason also we need to understand how lithium is excreted, and also you know that the lithium, sodium, iodine, all of them come under similar characteristics in the periodic table.
Yes, sir.
So because of that reason, again, thyroid, when we say about thyroid function test, we should be knowing how lithium would cause hypothyroidism.
Okay, sir.
Do you know how?
So lithium can, and hypothyroidism, sir, it can, so I think it is exchanged for iodine. So because it functions just like iodine, and lithium is conserved in, so Sir, I'm not clear on this actually.
Okay, for this we should know how thyroxine is prepared in
Yes,
the
sir.
body. So what are the 3 steps of thyroxine preparation, and in what 2 steps would in what steps would lithium go and act? It is
Okay.
not just instead of iodine uptake, lithium uptake happens, iodine stays in the blood, lithium is taken up. No. It acts on all the steps of thyroid metabolism, thyroxine metabolism. So we should know how that acts.
Yes, sir.
So all this will come if you're presented the case well. So if you're presented the case well, people will go to additional questions like this.
Okay, sir.
Then you said pharmacologically in acute treatment, you would also start benzodiazepine SOS
Yes, sir.
if there is anxiety and decreased sleep. But this person has 10 to 12 hours of sleep now.
So earlier he had. After now, when he is presenting to us, he started to sleep less. When he started the episode, there was a lot of sleep. Eventually, sir, he had later on he started complaining of decreased sleep.
How much is it now?
So now he says he's unable to sleep. Most of the night he's just lying on the bed and looking at the fan or ceiling.
How much would be the usual sleeping hours for a person with 70 years?
So 4 to 5 hours of 4 to 6 hours, sir, max.
So we should see whether this
Yes, sir.
this person has that much amount of adequate
Yes, yes.
sleep or not.
So
If
also
not,
he says that he's not fresh after sleep. Even if he sleeps, he does not feel fresh.
Okay. So we'll go to some this one about some guidelines of
Yes, sir.
management.
Yes,
So which guidelines do you know which can be used for management of care of person with bipolar affective disorder?
So bipolar, sir, APA guidelines, IPS guidelines, CANMET guidelines. So these are the 3 main ones that I know.
Okay, what is CANMET?
So
What is
CANMET is the Canadian Association of the guidelines of Canadian Association of Psychiatrists.
No. That will be CAP, Canadian Association of Psychiatrists.
Yes, sir. CANMET is, so I've forgotten.
Anyone else? Okay, people will have internet. They'll just search. Before they search, Canadian Network for Mood and Anxiety Treatments.
Okay, sir.
Okay, that is CANMET, Canadian Network for Mood and Anxiety
Mood anxiety
Treatments.
treatment, yes, sir.
So CANMET gives guidelines regularly. The current one, the latest one is in 2018.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 2018 CANMET guidelines is freely available in the internet.
Yes, sir.
So that gives, if you read CANMET guidelines, it's like the whole management plus some theoretical aspects, including the epidemiology of bipolar affective disorder and all these things is covered in that article.
Okay, sir.
So I wanted to ask about that because you said your pharmacologically your acute line of management would be olanzapine and fluoxetine
Yes, sir.
combination.
Yes, sir.
Although the combination is an accepted treatment,
Yes,
it is the only, we should remember that it is the only one combination therapy, combination tablet which is approved by FDA.
FDA, sir.
Antipsychotic and antidepressant combination, the only combination tablet which is FDA approved. But in acute depression, do you think this is the first line treatment?
So there are 2-3 approved first-line treatments in bipolar depression. The first is olanzapine fluoxetine can be given, or lamotrigine, or quetiapine. Even lurasidone has been allowed for bipolar depression, and otherwise lithium. Lithium also works. So valproate works less than lithium, but lithium is also one of the drugs of choice in bipolar depression. But all of that will take time to act. So immediate, if we are looking for an immediate something to start early, then olanzapine fluoxetine combination would be better.
How much time would it take for olanzapine fluoxetine combination to act at a good dose?
So at a good dose, probably sir, 2 to 3 days, sir.
To reach a good dose?
So to reach a good dose, we have to sir, up titrate the medication by at least it will take at
Yeah.
least 2 weeks, sir.
How would you up titrate olanzapine, for example?
Sir, I would like to first start with I would like to, since this is our second or third episode, we can start with 10 milligram at bedtime. And so I would like to up titrate the medication depending on the patient response. If there are no side effects, if there's no hypotension, or if the patient not feeling dizzy or no excessive sedation is not there, I would like to increase dose by 5 milligram. 5 milligram BD, and probably so by 2 weeks, I would like the patient to reach a dose of at least 20 milligrams.
See, olanzapine titration is about start with 5 mg and then go
Yes.
5 mg every week.
Yes,
So
sir.
to reach about 20 mg, it will take 1 month.
1 month, yes, yes.
Fluoxetine, again, highest dose that can be reached is about, like if we reach in this combination tablet, if we reach 20 mg of olanzapine, it would be 80 mg of fluoxetine.
Yes, sir.
So that would take a lot of time.
1 month also, yes, sir.
Yeah. So it is not fast enough.
Okay, sir.
So what to do?
So in that case, sir, we can also so we can start a mood stabilizer with the combination. Eventually, continue the person on the mood stabilizer.
So what we should, like, stick to one guidelines. It will be
Yes, sir.
better.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Joras said benzodiazepine cover. That's the correct answer. But what you should remember is that at least read 1 or 2 guidelines. Read NICE guidelines. That would be more than enough most of the times.
Okay, sir.
Or IPS guidelines. Usually people would accept NICE guidelines. Or if there are specific guidelines for the treatment of specific disorders, then take that up. Like say, for example, CANMET guidelines for bipolar affective disorders for all of them. For acute mania, acute depression, maintenance. So all these 3 CANMET guidelines is present. So if you tell about CANMET, read 1 guidelines, read 2 guidelines, NICE and CANMET, it would be easy.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Let's stick to 1 currently. So let us stick to CANMET guidelines. Let us think, because CANMET guidelines and NICE guidelines will also have about psychotherapies,
Okay, sir.
unlike other guidelines, which would probably not have. So CANMET guideline says that in depression, the first line of management is quetiapine.
Okay, sir.
See, quetiapine, what will happen is that to uptitrate it, although start low, go slow, holds good to many antipsychotics, quetiapine is usually hiked up fairly quickly.
Okay, sir.
Almost double every 2 days.
Okay.
So quetiapine will take lesser time to probably reach the antidepressants level, which is about 200 to 300 mg.
Okay, okay, sir.
So it would take, we'll start with 25 mg, then 25 mg BD, that is 50 mg in 2 days, 100 mg in 4 days, then 200 mg in 6 days.
Okay.
We have already reached antidepressant level by 1
Yes.
week.
Yes. Yes.
So quetiapine is one drug which will help. During that time, we can have a benzodiazepine cover.
Okay, sir.
Person with hypertension, diabetes, 70-year-old, it would be good if we don't know how the liver is, whether it is compromised or not. If this LSD is normal, then we can go with fairly long-acting or medium-acting agents like clonazepam. If not, we'll treat with lorazepam.
Okay, sir.
Probably this person would go tolerate clonazepam well. So we'll start him on clonazepam and uptitrate it. It is easier to titrate benzodiazepines.
Yes.
Keep it at a higher dose so that till the mood stabilizer or antipsychotic takes its effect for 15 days or so, we'll cover it under benzodiazepine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and then the second treatment, which like in the first line treatment, the second one which is approved is lurasidone and lithium or divalproate combination.
Okay, sir.
The third is lithium.
It's a combination of lurasidone and
Lithium or divalproate, either lurasidone plus lithium or lurasidone and divalproate.
okay, sir.
And lithium next.
And third is lithium alone. Okay, sir.
So here lamotrigine also comes. The next is lamotrigine.
Okay, sir.
But lamotrigine, the problem with that is it takes a very long time to
Yes, sir.
uptitrate it.
Yes, sir.
So how would you uptitrate lamotrigine?
We start lamotrigine 25 milligram, and then in one. So we have to. The big problem with lamotrigine is risk of rash and Steven-Johnson syndrome. So we'll have to uptitrate it very slowly, sir. So in first 1 week, I would like to continue on 25 milligram. Then next week, you can increase by 25 milligram BD, make it around 50, and then continue that dose for next 1 week, and then uptitrate it further to maximum dose about 200 milligram, 200 to 50 milligrams. So it will take about 5 to 6 weeks, sir, before the maximum dose can be reached.
Yeah. So the other problem is that if a person stops lamotrigine, then we'll have to start from scratch.
Yes, yes, sir.
So although usually this is the way it is done. So what is the chances of somebody developing a serious rash or Steven-Johnson syndrome?
So the chances, percentage is considered to be 4%. But the thing is that it depends upon it is not always dose related.
Yeah.
But with increasing the dose, the risk is there, sir. Especially if we have other medications that can also cause skin problems with lamotrigine if it's in combination with other medications.
Yeah.
And generally, the risk is low, sir.
Yeah, lamotrigine usually 4 to 5% is what it is. But if we updated it very slowly, then the chance of that reduces to 0.01%.
Yes, sir.
0.01 to 0.1%. So update rating slowly would be once in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir. Okay,
so right now what you said, once in a week, even then about 5% chances are there. If we do it like once in, like first week we start with 25, after 2 weeks, that is third week, we double it 50. After fifth week, we increase it to 100 mg, then probably it is much lesser.
Okay.
So what we do in our unit, at least in NIMHANS, is that we increase 25 mg every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So to reach 200 mg, it will take 4 months.
Yes, sir.
But we haven't seen any Steven-Johnson syndrome or even serious rash. We use it fairly regularly.
Okay.
So updating it slowly will reduce the risk of serious rash. So lamotrigine also can be considered. But remember that the first drug of choice for this is quetiapine.
Quetiapine. Okay, sir.
The second is lurasidone and either lithium or divalproate combination.
Combination.
The third is lithium. Fourth is lamotrigine.
Okay, sir.
Second line treatment for this would be divalproate, SSRIs, bupropion, ECT, and all. Okay, so right now this person was not agitated, but to just for you people who are undergoing exam, if a person is agitated, so the first line management for agitation would be injectable.
Injectable, yes, sir.
Okay, what do you think? Which one would be the first drug of choice?
Sir, if injectable olanzapine is available, then we can give that. Otherwise, the injectable haloperidol 5 milligram and promethazine 25 milligram combination for acute
That's what we
agitation.
usually do. Haloperidol, promethazine, haloperidol, lorazepam. Haloperidol, promethazine is second line treatment.
Okay, sir. So then benzodiazepines.
Yeah, benzodiazepines are there, but they say acutely the first drug of choice for that is aripiprazole.
Okay,
if it is available. Aripiprazole intramuscular 9.75 mg to up to 15 mg. The second is only lorazepam.
Okay, sir.
2 mg. The third drug of choice for that is olanzapine 2.5 to 10 mg.
Okay, sir.
So usually aripiprazole is not available here, so we go ahead with lorazepam.
Okay, sir.
We can also add olanzapine to that, short acting.
Okay.
The second line is haloperidol and promethazine.
Okay.
Okay. Similarly, for acute mania,
Yes, sir.
what do you think would be the first drug of choice?
So again, for acute mania, I would say, sir, maybe, sir, then lorazepam 2 milligram intramuscular DPIM or
This is not agitation. This is only acute mania.
Okay, sir, acute mania. Okay, sir. So then we can give tablet olanzapine if the patient is willing for oral medication.
Olanzapine is second line. That is also in combination.
Okay, sir. Then, sir, injectable haloperidol and
That is if the person is agitated.
Agitated.
So, for acute mania, CANMET guideline says that lithium is the first drug of choice, quetiapine is next, and valproate is third.
Okay, sir.
And in combination, quetiapine plus lithium or divalproate. Next is aripiprazole with lithium or divalproate.
Okay, sir.
Second line is olanzapine or carbamazepine.
Okay, sir.
Okay. For maintenance treatment, again, lithium is first drug of choice. Lithium, quetiapine, divalproate, and lamotrigine in that order. And second line is olanzapine, risperidone injection, long-acting injection, and carbamazepine.
Okay, sir.
Risperidone or paliperidone long-acting injection.
So it's like in this, suppose we have started the patient with on olanzapine and fluoxetine combination, and now we have to put the patient on prophylaxis for depression. So will we shift that patient from here to lithium or valproate?
See, in a long-term treatment, what is known is that SSRIs don't help
Yes, sir.
in maintenance treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And adding SSRIs will increase the risk of developing rapid cycling.
Yes, sir.
So, because of which reason we'll have to take away SSRIs. And fluoxetine is very notorious to cause switch.
Switch. Yes, sir.
So, if there is a switch and if there are more than 4, then it will be rapid cycling. So, because of that reason, we'll usually here we don't start antidepressants. Rarely, if it is absolutely required under the cover of mood stabilizer, we would start antidepressant, but it will be taken away very soon.
Yes.
The usual ones which will be started will be either quetiapine or lamotrigine.
Okay, sir.
Or lurasidone with the lithium divalproate combination.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So I would suggest that quetiapine is good for acute depression and maintenance in bipolar.
Okay, sir.
Lithium is also good. Lamotrigine also is good. So if we start either of these, then it will cover acute depression also and the maintenance treatment also.
Okay, sir.
Instead of starting olanzapine, which is a second line, which is not a treatment for depression at all,
Okay, sir.
and which is second line treatment for maintenance of bipolarity,
Yes.
the maintenance of remission from bipolar disorder. So olanzapine would not be a very good choice.
Okay, sir.
Although olanzapine and fluoxetine combination looks very promising, once upon a time it was one of the sought after combination, but nowadays at least the recent CANMET guidelines do not go in favor of that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So all in all, just to quickly revise CANMET guidelines for agitation. First line is aripiprazole IM, lorazepam IM, or olanzapine IM. Second line will be haloperidol promethazine. For acute mania, lithium, quetiapine, valproate, or combination of quetiapine and lithium and divalproate, or aripiprazole, lithium, or divalproate. Second line is olanzapine or carbamazepine.
Okay.
For depression, it will be quetiapine, lurasidone, lithium, divalproate combination, lithium, or lamotrigine. And second line will be divalproate, SSRIs, bupropion, ECTs, etc.
Yes.
For maintenance, it will be lithium, quetiapine, divalproate, and lamotrigine. Second line, it will be olanzapine, risperidone, long-acting injection, and carbamazepine.
Yes.
Okay. So, and for psychosocial management, you listed out psychoeducation, CBT, family focus therapy, IPSRT,
Yes.
everything. So, in depression, although all of them will act better, so instead of starting all of this, if they ask you to choose one of that, which one would you choose for this patient?
So this patient, because he is an educated man, and so I would like to start a CBT in this patient.
Yeah.
So it will help him more.
Yeah. CBT is also second line of choice for treatment of person with depression in bipolar depression.
Okay.
So first is medication, and after that it will be CBT.
CBT. Yes.
Although family focused therapy is also one of the second line treatments, here we have to see before choosing. You see whether this person's family dynamics are proper or not, with the history,
Yes,
how they do this. You said that this person shuttles between Ghaziabad and his
yes,
one son's
Jaipur.
place to another
Yes,
place.
yes,
How is care there? Whether there is increased risk of any of these episodes in one of the son's house,
yes, sir.
one of the like what happens there. If there is something like that, then we'll start with family focus.
Family focused.
Otherwise,
Okay.
CBT would be better.
Okay, sir.
And IPSRT is only third line treatment.
Okay, sir.
Although this will be one of the favorite questions for examiners if you utter IPSRT to ask about that. You should remember that it's a third line treatment.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So can you tell me something about IPSRT? Because if you tell this, they'll ask this question.
Sir, actually, sir, we believe that PPAD there is a problem with relationships and problem with regular maintenance of cycles of relationships and to patients. So this is a therapy that focuses on. Actually, I have to read a little more about IPSRT. I just read 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah. So it says not only social rhythms, interpersonal skills and social rhythm. So both of these are important in this.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Who gave it? Any idea? Anybody remembers?
It's a Klein.
No, it was Frank and Holly, Ellen Frank and Holly Schwartz.
Okay.
So they have given IPSRT. There are 4 phases in this: initial phase, intermediate phase, maintenance phase, and final phase.
Okay.
Initial phase will collect history. We'll try and see what is happening. Then the intermediate phase will try and see how to maintain, reorganize their social rhythm,
Yes.
which includes both the circadian rhythm and how they respond to other people and their comments. And then in the maintenance phase, we try to maintain whatever they have learned in the intermediate phase. And in the final phase, we look at them going back to work, coming to therapy. The frequency will gradually reduce, and then the maintenance of that will be final phase.
Okay.
So this is IPSRT. So whenever there is a bipolar effect, otherwise your management was good. So you said scales you would want to use for depression.
Yes.
Which scale would you try to use?
So there is a bipolar depression questionnaire that can be used. Otherwise, separately for depression, I can use Hamilton Depression Rating Scale. I can use Beck's Depression Inventory.
So you should also know some details about these scales. I'm not going to the details because of the time
Okay, sir.
constraints.
Yes.
Then also you said that you will use MMSE.
Yes, sir. So for cognitive functions in the person.
Yeah, but be careful when you are telling about the scales. See whether they are copyrighted.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
MMSE
So
is
MMSE is now copyrighted. So
it
there's
was
another.
copyrighted when I was a student also.
Yes, sir. Yes.
From past 10 years, at least it is copyrighted.
Yes.
It is copyrighted. So you can't use MMSE.
So we can use MoCA then, sir. I
We
think
can
so
use
MoCA
MoCA.
Yes, sir.
We can use something which is Indianized. MMSE Indianized. What is that?
So HMMSC we can use.
Hindi mental scale.
Hindi mental
status
scale.
examination. Although it is not in Hindi, it is in English only. But Hindi mental status examination, HMSE can be used.
Okay, sir.
Which is quite similar to MMSE.
Okay, sir.
So some of the other questions probably which would be asked are that in mania and depression, in bipolar affective disorder, what do you think in untreated mania, how long would it last?
So untreated mania. So it can last up to. So chronic mania can last up to 2 years or more, but otherwise episodes can last for 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months usually. Depression.
So depression can last for 6 to 9 months.
In bipolar depression, we should know that it is much longer.
Yes, sir.
It will be 6 to 13 months.
Okay, sir.
And if it is treated, even then it may last up to 3 months.
Okay, sir.
So, and in this case, we should also notice that it's a very classic bipolar disorder, wherein the disorder after its progression, the time interval between the episodes will also reduce usually.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So usually after about 5 episodes or so, inter-episodic interval becomes 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months. Yes, sir.
Which
Stabilizing
is happening.
6 to 9 months.
Like about 8 months or so, he'll be alright, and then again he'll take up another episode.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, coming to some studies in bipolar affective disorder, do you know any landmark study in bipolar?
So a balance study has been done in bipolar affective disorder.
Which one?
Balance trial.
Which else? Any other landmark study which is very famous for treatment?
So for bipolar, I just know one.
NIMH funded.
NIMH.
Jwala said STAR-D, but STAR-D is for depression.
Okay, sir. So STAR-D is depression, yes, sir.
Similar to STAR-D. There is something called as STEP-BD.
STEP-BD, yes, sir.
It is systematic treatment enhancement program for bipolar disorder.
Yes, sir.
Systematic treatment enhancement program for bipolar disorder, STEP-BD.
Yes.
Brief about that, because I think none of you have read that. A brief note I will tell you. It was funded by NIMH. There were 22 sites in that. It was a 7-year study from 98 to 2005. They did this. And it consisted of 2-year follow-up study.
Okay.
They had three mood stabilizers, divalproate, lithium, and lamotrigine, 3 antidepressants, paroxetine, bupropion, and trimethoprim, 1 antipsychotic risperidone, 1 inositol, and 3 kinds of therapies: CBT, family focused therapy, and IPSRT. See, the results of this study were published in many articles, at least about 60 articles. So some of the highlights of this are that antidepressants have no more efficacy in maintenance.
Okay, sir.
So that is the reason why I said, like, if you start fluoxetine, then it might not be helpful later.
Yes, sir.
So it was one of the results from STEP-BD. Then intensive psychotherapy is much better
Yes, sir.
than brief psychotherapy or others. Lamotrigine had better efficacy, slightly better efficacy than risperidone, which was more efficacious than inositol.
Okay, sir.
And recovery, having a recovery, complete recovery is difficult.
Okay.
Because almost half of the people would recur.
Okay.
Would have a recurrence of, even after good treatment, even after combination treatment, they would have a recurrence.
Yes.
And to treat comorbid anxiety or substance use disorder, if they were treated, the prognosis would be better.
Okay, sir.
Okay, these are some of the results from STEP-BD.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
And the other thing which commonly would be asked is, you know what, although it is not in ICD, which of bipolar disorders would this be? 1, 2, 3?
So this would be bipolar 1 because a clear-cut depression and mania is there.
Yeah, clear-cut mania is there.
Yes,
Who
sir.
gave this concept, bipolar 1 and 2?
So there was Akiskal's classification is there, some bipolar.
Before him?
So before him, yes, so one. I forgot his name. Before him,
The same group gave rapid cycling.
yes, sir.
So these are Dunner and Fieve. Okay.
So can you please repeat?
Dunner and Fieve, DUNNER and FIEV.
Okay.
Dunner and Fieve, they gave both rapid cycling and bipolar 1 and 2. Then again, it was in 70s. In 80s, Gerald Klerman.
Yes, sir. Klerman. Right, sir. Yes, sir.
Klerman gave 6 types,
Yes, sir.
which was much more elaborated by Akiskal.
Yes, sir.
So again, Akiskal's classification is one thing if you have a bipolar disorder, which they'll ask.
Yes, sir.
I will not go ahead with, here, but you
Yes.
should read about Akiskal's classification.
Yes, sir.
So, one more thing you should know is some names like cyclothymia,
Yes, sir.
monomania, leptomania. All these are historical interest.
Yes.
So, even if you Google bipolar disorder history, you will get all these names. So, I suggest that you go through that also.
Okay, sir.
Then, because you had initially said that this person also in ADS with bipolar disorder, so I just wanted to ask you people like ADS and bipolar disorder, how are they uh, related genetically? Is there any relationship for with that?
So for
Why should?
alcohol and bipolar,
Hmm.
sir, so alcohol can worsen the bipolar prognosis. Management could be more
Yeah.
difficult if the person has alcohol use along with bipolar.
Yeah.
So then um,
See, genetically they are related illnesses because of something called as tachykinin receptor.
okay, sir.
Okay, there is one SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, at least about 19 SNPs in this tachykinin receptors have been found out. TACR1, tachykinin receptor. This has a relationship with bipolar disorder, alcohol dependence syndrome, and also ADHD.
Okay, sir.
So that is why getting a temperamental history, getting a childhood history of ADHD is also very important.
Okay, sir.
Because ADHD, ADS, and bipolar disorder are related through a common gene.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
And here we also have a question as to treatment for Dr. Nirmal has asked treatment for acute mania in pregnancy. So the first line treatment, lithium, can it be given?
So risk benefit ratio has to be seen, and lithium, and although it causes Epstein's anomalies, but the risk is very low.
Hmm.
So I think we can continue. The patient is on lithium. We can continue giving lithium. Probably try to avoid it in the first trimester, but if it is unavoidable, we can continue with lithium in pregnancy.
Yeah, he has asked in first trimester what to do.
So I would maybe continue with the lowest dose and could regularly monitor the pregnancy and add folic acid and other.
See, recently, I don't know whether examiners would know this, but for your practice, I am telling. Recently, there was an article which said that Epstein's anomaly and lithium may not be actually related.
Yes, sir.
What they have, the newer article has found out is that probably Epstein's anomaly is related to bipolar disorder itself, genetically. And since lithium is a very long-term usage, very well-known molecule which was used, the earlier articles which started gathering data probably found out that everybody would be on lithium at that point of time. So that is why there is bias in these articles which have said that lithium and Epstein's anomaly are connected. Although there is no probable mechanism by which this could have happened, there is no good understanding about that. So there is a doubt now whether lithium causes Epstein's anomaly or Epstein's anomaly is a genetic condition which is related to bipolar disorder. This is for general knowledge, but I don't know whether examiners would have. This is a very pretty recent article. I read it about a month or 2 months ago. So I don't know whether the examiners would have read this. So it is better to tell lithium might cause the Epstein's anomaly, so we'll not go ahead with that in first trimester. Although what is usually done here is adding olanzapine instead.
Okay. Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Although it is second line treatment for acute mania, but olanzapine seems to work well because valproate, because of neural tube defects, will not be able to add. Quetiapine again is one drug which can be added, although it would prolong QTC, it may cross placental barrier. So usually what is done is olanzapine is added.
Okay, sir. So we add olanzapine or we shift the person from lithium
we
to
shift it. We stop lithium and we add olanzapine instead.
So can we stop lithium suddenly?
No, we don't stop it suddenly. See, if usually what happens, ideally what should happen is that the person, when they're planning pregnancy, they should come and meet us. We, at least in Immense, we have perinatal clinic, mother-baby unit. So they usually advise to stop lithium gradually and start cross-taper it with olanzapine, and then plan pregnancy. But usually this is not the case. People will come to us after missing 2 or 3 cycles, after first trimester is over. So then we see nowadays even fetal cardiac sonography is available.
Yes.
Fetal echo is cardiac echo is available. So get that done. See whether Epstein's anomaly is there. If it is not there, then many people would still like to continue lithium, but there are many people who would stop lithium and add olanzapine at that point of time. Once the baby is born and all, then continuing olanzapine is more easier because lithium is a salt; it gets secreted more often than olanzapine in the breast milk also. So switching over to olanzapine will be better.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay, I think we have overshot the time by 40 minutes. Anyways, it was a good presentation. Where is your
Thank you, sir.
center?
So my center is in LHMC Delhi, sir.
Okay. Okay. Try and find out what type of cases come there.
Yes,
Be
sir.
prepared for such type of cases because each of the centers would have different types of cases which would come.
Okay,
In
sir.
some places it would be usually neurology. In some cases, some it would be pediatric. So
Yes,
try and find out which would be available.
Okay, sir.
If there are SRs or seniors who are present there again, of the court, try and get in contact with them. Try and find out what types of cases usually come there.
Yes,
Be
sir.
prepared for that.
Yes, sir.
If you get to know who the examiners would be,
No,
then
sir, we don't.
so sometimes it would be announced. Sometimes they would know.
Yes.
Or if you know, if yours is on the third day or fourth day,
Yes,
the
sir.
first day you will know who the examiners are.
Yes,
So at that point of time, read a bit about what they have done.
Yes, sir.
That will be helpful.
So their areas of interest.
Yeah, their areas of interest.
Okay.
I couldn't do that because mine was on the first day. So
Okay.
I had to just go and jump into the well. But if yours is on second or third day, then you can get some details about what their areas of interest
I'll
are.
try, sir, because second day, mine is on second day, sir, possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So till then you read about all other things.
Yes.
On the previous day, you can just see what their areas of interest are.
Absolutely.
Okay. All the best. All
Thank
the
you
best
so
to
much,
all
sir.
of.
Thank you so much, sir.
All the best to all of you who are giving exams this month. Okay, we'll end the meeting. Before we end the meeting, we like to thank Clinics Laboratories Chennai for their academic support through academic grants. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
We'll
so
meet
much, sir.
next Saturday. Would be the first class on psychiatric rehabilitation. It will be on introduction to rehabilitation and recovery. Yeah. Meet you all next week, Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.